The camera sweep starts at dawn. Standard protocol for Freedom Camp 17, one of 43 detention facilities operating under the Vought Security Partnership. The lens catches chain link first, then the prefab buildings, arranged in neat rows, then the American flag snapping in the wind above every guard tower. Everything looks clean from this angle. That's the point. Inside the medical processing unit, fluorescent lights hum against white tile. Huey Campbell sits on a metal bench, wrists zip-tied behind his back. His shirt has someone else's blood on it from the riot 3 days ago. Nobody's asked whose. Mother's Milk stands against the far wall, silent, watching the door. His jaw works like he's chewing something bitter. Frenchie occupies the corner. He hasn't blinked in 4 minutes. When Huey tries to catch his eye, Frenchie stares through him at something that isn't there. The door opens without warning. A man in a white coat enters carrying a tablet. Mid-30s, clean-shaven, the kind of face that would disappear in a crowd. His ID badge reads, Dr. Keller Vought Medical Division. He doesn't look at any of them directly. Morning, gentlemen. His voice carries no particular accent, no warmth. Functional. Routine health screening. Federal mandate. You understand? Mother's Milk doesn't move. We understand plenty. The doctor taps his tablet twice. Who wants to go first? Nobody volunteers. The doctor's expression doesn't change. He points at Huey without looking up. You. Roll up your sleeve. Huey stands mechanically. The zip ties dig into his wrists. The doctor produces a blood pressure cuff, wraps it around Huey's arm. His fingers are cold. Not nervous cold. Just cold like meat pulled from a refrigerator. The reading appears on the tablet. The doctor nods once, removes the cuff. Good. Next. Mother's Milk steps forward before being asked. Smart. Keep the momentum going, don't give them reasons to escalate. The doctor repeats the process. Same mechanical efficiency. No wasted movement. When he reaches Frenchie, something shifts. Frenchie doesn't stand until the doctor is 3 feet away. Then he rises smoothly, arms loose at his sides, despite the restraints. His head tilts slightly, listening to something no one else can hear. Arm, the doctor says. Frenchie extends his arm. The cuff goes on. The doctor's thumb hovers over the tablet screen, but he doesn't tap it. He's watching Frenchie's face now, really watching, and there's a quality to his attention that wasn't there before. Like a scanner locking onto a target. Mother's Milk sees it too. His weight shifts forward, barely perceptible. The reading completes. The doctor removes the cuff slowly, then steps back. Thank you for your cooperation. He leaves. The lock clicks behind him. Huey exhales. That was weird, right? That guy was quiet. Mother's Milk's eyes haven't left the door. Frenchie, look at me. Frenchie turns his head, but his gaze slides past Mother's Milk like oil on water. I am looking. No, you're not. Outside, the morning shift change begins. Boots on gravel. Radio chatter. Someone laughs about something, the sound carrying through the thin walls. Normal sounds, the kind that make you forget where you are if you're not careful. In the security control room, 2 buildings over a monitor flickers. 0.3 seconds of static, so brief the guard watching doesn't register it. When the image returns, everything looks the same. Same hallways. Same prisoners shuffling between checkpoints. Same doctors making rounds. But in the medical wing's storage closet, a guard who went in to grab supplies never came out. The door remains closed. No alarm sounds. On the manifest, his shift reads as completed on time. His radio check-in happens at the correct intervals, his voice clear and professional. Nobody notices that his answers are slightly too precise, that he doesn't use the usual shorthand, that when command asks him to verify the lock code on the pharmaceutical storage, he provides it without the typical grumbling about bureaucracy. The day proceeds according to schedule. Breakfast gets distributed. Prisoners file through the yard in supervised groups. The Vought news feed plays on mounted screens throughout the camp, showing the president's latest address about public safety and domestic security. The volume is loud enough that conversation requires effort. Huey watches the screen. The president's face fills the frame, earnest and determined. These facilities represent our commitment to rehabilitation and reintegration. Every American deserves a second chance, but that chance comes with responsibility. We're building a safer future together. Mother's Milk snorts quietly. Together? Sure. A guard walks past their section. His stride is different from yesterday, more deliberate. He doesn't acknowledge the prisoners, doesn't make eye contact. Just maintains his patrol route with mechanical precision. When he reaches the corner, he turns exactly 90 degrees. The second anomaly happens at noon. In the administrative building, a data analyst named Torres logs into the system to run the weekly security audit. Everything checks out. Guard rotations match the schedule. Prisoner counts align. Supply requisitions show no discrepancies. She files her report and moves to the next task. She doesn't notice that 3 access logs have been modified. The timestamps still fall within acceptable parameters, but the user IDs don't match the facial recognition data. The system should flag this. It doesn't. Someone has already convinced the software that everything is fine. By early afternoon, 5 people are missing from the camp. Not prisoners, staff, a guard, a nurse, a logistics coordinator, a communications technician, and Torres herself. None of them have left the facility. Their biometric badges show them at their assigned stations. Their supervisors see them working. Their colleagues exchange brief words with them during shift overlaps. But if you knew what to look for, you'd see the differences. The way they move. The stillness in their eyes. The fact that they never eat, never drink, never make unnecessary conversation. In the medical wing, Dr. Keller returns for afternoon rounds. He examines 3 more prisoners, runs the same tests, inputs the same data. When he finishes, he walks to the rear exit instead of the main corridor. The guard stationed there nods him through without checking his credentials. The hallway beyond is off limits to regular staff. Secure storage. Sensitive materials. Dr. Keller's badge shouldn't grant access, but the scanner reads it and the lock disengages. He enters a room marked Biohazard Level 3. Inside, a terminal displays classified intelligence briefings, current operations, high-priority targets. One file sits open, flagged with multiple security clearances. Subject: William Butcher. Last known location: unknown. Asset status: armed and dangerous. Special note: suspected possession of bioweapon pending confirmation. The attached report details the weapon's origin, its capabilities, its strategic value. A virus engineered to kill superhumans. Recovered from the Homelander containment scenario. Currently unaccounted for following the Victoria Newman incident. Dr. Keller reads every word. His eyes don't move the way human eyes should when processing information. They track the text in perfect horizontal lines, absorbing it all simultaneously. When he's finished, he doesn't close the file or log out. He simply stands there motionless for 11 seconds. Then he leaves. The door locks behind him. The access log shows Dr. Keller never entered the room. In the security office, the monitor flickers again. Longer this time. Almost a full second. The guard on duty frowns, taps the screen. The image stabilizes. He makes a note to submit a maintenance request, then goes back to watching the feeds. He doesn't see the figure that appears in the corner of camera 6 during the static. Doesn't see how it stands perfectly still, not breathing, not shifting weight. Doesn't see it turn its head toward the camera with mechanical precision, as if it knows exactly where the lens is. The figure moves out of frame. The static clears. Everything returns to normal. Evening count happens at 1800 hours. All prisoners accounted for, all staff present. No incidents reported. The camp commander reviews the day's reports, finds nothing unusual, and approves the night shift rotation. In their holding cell, Huey lies on his bunk and stares at the ceiling. Something's wrong. Mother's Milk doesn't disagree. He's been watching Frenchie for the past 3 hours. Frenchie sits cross-legged on the floor, humming something tuneless under his breath. When the dinner tray arrived, he didn't touch it. When Huey tried to talk to him, he smiled and said everything was fine, in a voice that sounded like Frenchie, but wasn't. "Tomorrow," Mother's Milk says quietly. "We figure it out tomorrow." Huey wants to ask how. Wants to point out that they're locked in a federal detention facility with no resources, no allies, and no way to contact anyone outside. But he doesn't, because Mother's Milk already knows all of that. Outside, the sun sets. The lights in the guard towers flare on, casting long shadows across the yard. The camp settles into its nighttime routine. Patrols continue. Cameras sweep their designated arcs. Everything proceeds according to plan. In the medical wing, Dr. Keller's office sits dark and empty. His coat hangs on the back of his chair. His tablet rests on the desk screen black. But if someone were to check the building's electrical consumption, they'd notice a slight spike in power draw from the storage area. Not enough to trigger an alarm, but present nonetheless. Something is consuming energy. Something is growing. Something that doesn't sleep and doesn't need light and doesn't care about the schedule. The last thing that happens before midnight is the smallest. A glitch in the security camera monitoring the main gate. The same 0.3-second flicker. When the image returns, the guard in the booth looks the same, stands the same. But when the next shift arrives for rotation, he hands over the log with a motion that's too smooth, too efficient. The incoming guard doesn't notice. Why would he? Everything looks normal. Everything feels normal. That's the problem. The camp sleeps. The systems hum. The reports file themselves. And somewhere in the dark spaces between the cameras, something moves that shouldn't exist. Something that used to be human. Something that is learning this place, consuming it piece by piece, preparing for what comes next. Dawn will bring new problems. But for now, in the quiet hours before morning, Freedom Camp 17 runs like a machine. A machine with something growing inside it. That is a creepy way to kick off the story. Did you catch the part where Dr. Keller's fingers were cold as meat pulled from a refrigerator? This isn't just Vought being their usual corporate selves. Something is literally crawling inside the staff, and the scary part is that everything looks totally clean and neat from the outside. I think Dr. Keller was just the tip of the iceberg, like a test run for whatever is taking over the camp. It feels like the boys aren't just in a prison anymore, they're in a petri dish. What do you guys think? Is Dr. Keller a robot? Or is it something much grosser? Now let's see how deep this memory hole goes in the next part. The first anomaly surfaces during breakfast distribution. A prisoner in Block C receives an extra tray. Nobody ordered it. The kitchen logs show standard counts. When the man tries to hand it back, the logistics coordinator waves him off. "Keep it. System error." Huey watches this from 3 tables away. Small thing, meaningless probably. Except the coordinator is the same one who screamed at someone yesterday for taking an extra bread roll. Now he barely glances at a full duplicate meal. Mother's Milk sees it too. He doesn't comment, just files it away with the other details that don't fit. The medical wing opens for scheduled appointments at 0900. Dr. Keller's replacement, a woman named Dr. Shah, handles the morning rounds. She's been at the facility for 2 weeks. Professional, efficient. She processes 6 detainees before 10:30, each examination identical in duration and procedure. When she finishes, she returns to the administrative section. Her ID badge grants access to 3 secured areas. By 10:45, she's accessed 7. The system logs all of it as routine. Her supervisor, reviewing the access reports during lunch, finds nothing questionable, because the access times align perfectly with legitimate tasks, because the badge swipes occur in logical sequence, because Dr. Shah's workload justifies the expanded permissions. What the supervisor doesn't know is that Dr. Shah submitted a formal request for those permissions 3 days ago. A request she has no memory of writing. A request that was approved by someone whose digital signature matches their real one perfectly, but who never actually reviewed the document. In Building 6, the communications hub processes standard traffic, guard shift updates, supply requisitions, weather advisories. At 1100 hours, a new directive appears in the queue. Priority level moderate. Source regional command. Content adjust. Prisoner transfer schedules to accommodate facility upgrades in Sector 7. The senior technician reads it twice. The language is correct. The authorization codes check out. He implements the changes and forwards the directive to the camp commander for final approval. The commander approves it without question. Why wouldn't he regional command? Sends these all the time. The facility upgrades in Sector 7 are real. Everything aligns. What nobody notices is that the directive creates a 40-minute gap in the transfer schedule. A window where 3 specific detainees will be moved between buildings without the usual escort protocols. A window that didn't exist an hour ago. Huey notices when the lunch shift starts late. Only by 5 minutes, but the routine hasn't varied since they arrived. Mother's Milk catches it too, his eyes tracking the delayed servers. Something's off, Huey mutters. Everything's off. Mother's Milk keeps his voice low. Question is what changed. Across the mess hall, Frenchie sits with his tray untouched. His head tilts at odd intervals like he's listening to a conversation happening in another room. When a guard passes too close, Frenchie's breathing hitches just for a second, then normalizes. The guard doesn't notice. He's new to this wing, transferred in from the perimeter detail this morning. The transfer request came through official channels. His supervisor approved it. Standard rotation, nothing unusual. Except the guard whose position he filled didn't request a transfer, didn't show up for shift change. His absence was logged as approved leave backdated to yesterday. When someone tried to reach him by radio, his response came through clear and professional. That guard is currently stored in a maintenance closet in Building 4. What remains of him, anyway. The parts that were useful have been integrated elsewhere. The rest is biomass waiting for disposal. By 1300 hours, the pattern accelerates. A logistics officer discovers that 3 supply shipments are arriving ahead of schedule. He contacts the vendors to confirm. They verify the delivery times. He updates the receiving schedule to accommodate early unloading. The shipments contain standard items, medical supplies, cleaning products, cafeteria provisions. Everything matches the purchase orders. Everything is exactly what was requested. Except buried in the medical supplies are 6 doses of a sedative that wasn't on the original requisition. The addition is documented. The medical director's approval is attached. The pharmacy that filled the order has records showing the director placed a follow-up call to verify the quantity. The medical director has no memory of this call, but his phone logs show an outgoing connection to the pharmacy at the correct time. The duration matches a typical verification conversation. The pharmacy system recorded his voice confirming the order. In the security office, 3 monitors display feeds from the perimeter fence. At 13:15, the bottom right screen flickers. Half a second of distortion. When the image returns, everything appears normal. Same fence line, same patrol patterns, same empty ground between the wire and the tree line. The officer monitoring the feeds makes a note about the glitch. He'll mention it during the next maintenance window. Not urgent. Just another aging component in an underfunded facility. What he doesn't see, because the glitch timing was precise, is the figure that moved from the administrative building to the communications hub during that half second. A figure that didn't use the walkways, that didn't trigger motion sensors, that crossed 70 meters of open ground in a time frame that should be impossible. Mother's Milk sees the glitch from the yard. The monitors are visible through the security office window if you know where to look. He's been watching them all morning, cataloging the sweep patterns. When the screen cuts out, he counts the duration, notes which feed it effects, marks the time. "We need to talk to Frenchie," he says quietly. Huey follows his gaze. He's not talking to anyone. Then we watch him talk to himself. They move closer to where Frenchie sits. He's muttering now too low to make out words. His fingers drum against the table in an irregular pattern. Not nervous energy, something more deliberate, like he's tapping out a code. When Mother's Milk sits across from him, Frenchie's eyes flick up. There's recognition there. And something else. Fear, maybe. Or warning. "Hey." Mother's Milk keeps his tone neutral. "You good?" Frenchie's mouth opens, closes, opens again. They sound wrong. Who sounds wrong? All of them. Frenchie's hand gestures vaguely toward the entire facility. The voices. They're too smooth. Too clean. His eyes fix on something past Mother's Milk's shoulder. That one especially. Mother's Milk doesn't turn around immediately. Which one? The tall one. The one who walks like he's counting steps. Huey risks a glance. A guard is making rounds near the west fence. His stride is measured. Precise. Almost mechanical in its consistency. "That's just Peterson," Huey says. "He's been here the whole time." Frenchie shakes his head. Not Peterson. Something wearing Peterson. The guard completes his circuit and disappears around the corner of Building 3. Normal patrol route. Nothing unusual about his movements, except the precision. But precision isn't a crime. Some people just walk like that. Mother's Milk files it away with everything else. The late meals, the schedule changes, the glitches, Frenchie's deteriorating coherence. None of it connects yet, but it will. At 1500 hours, a staff meeting convenes in the administration building. Standard weekly review. Attendance is mandatory for department heads. The camp commander chairs the meeting. 12 people sit around the conference table. 4 of them aren't human anymore. They haven't been for days. But they contribute to the discussion. They provide updates on their departments. They raise appropriate concerns and offer reasonable solutions. Their colleagues don't suspect anything because there's nothing to suspect. The meeting concludes at 1600 hours. The minutes are filed. Action items are assigned. Everyone returns to their duties. One of those action items involves increasing security protocols in the detention blocks. Enhanced monitoring during the night shift. Additional wellness checks for high-risk detainees. The recommendation comes from Dr. Shah, citing recent psychological assessments. The camp commander approves it. Makes sense. Better safe than sorry. Safe. What the recommendation actually does is create a documented reason for medical staff to access detention areas after hours. It establishes a pattern that will seem completely normal when it matters most. By 1700 hours, the facility's digital infrastructure has been thoroughly mapped. Every access point, every authentication protocol, every backdoor that the IT department thinks is secure. The information didn't come from hacking. It came from consuming the senior network administrator during his lunch break. His replacement returned from lunch on time, finished his afternoon tasks efficiently, responded to 2 help desk tickets, and scheduled maintenance for the aging server array. Nobody noticed that he typed 43% faster than before, that he didn't need to reference documentation for complex procedures, that his answers to technical questions were too precise. The sun sets at 18:30. Evening count begins, all detainees present, all staff accounted for, no incidents to report. Huey lies on his bunk and tries to make sense of the day. Everything felt wrong, but nothing was provably wrong. Meals came late, but they came. Staff seemed off, but they functioned. Frenchie's paranoia might be just that paranoia. Except Mother's Milk doesn't dismiss it. Tomorrow. Mother's Milk says from the floor where he's doing push-ups, "We test something." Test what? Whether the problem is human. Huey wants to ask how you test for that. Wants to point out they're prisoners with no resources and no leverage. But he stays quiet because Mother's Milk already has a plan. He always does. In the administrative building, lights dim as the night shift takes over. The skeleton crew settles into routine. 2 guards, 1 communications tech, 1 medical officer on call. 3 of them are walking corpses, their biomass repurposed and their memories harvested. They perform their duties flawlessly. They log their activities with bureaucratic precision. They are exactly what the system expects them to be. The 4th, the real one, sits in the break room and reviews tomorrow's schedule. He doesn't notice when his coffee goes cold. Doesn't register the slight temperature drop in the room. Doesn't see the way the fluorescent lights flicker in a pattern that isn't random. He finishes his coffee and returns to his post completely unaware that he's the last genuine human being in the entire administrative wing. The facility sleeps. The systems hum. The reports generate themselves with automated efficiency. And in the spaces between the data streams, something vast and patient continues learning, continues growing, continues preparing for the chaos that must look like order until the exact moment it doesn't. Mother's Milk's test starts at breakfast. Simple premise: watch how people react to unexpected stimuli. He drops his tray. Not an accident. A deliberate crash that sends plastic clattering across the floor. Every head in the mess hall turns. Natural response. Except 3 people don't turn immediately. They complete their current action first mid-chew, mid-sip, mid-reach. Then swivel with identical timing. Mechanical. Delayed by exactly 1.2 seconds. Huey sees it. His stomach drops. "That's not right," he whispers. Mother's Milk retrieves his tray without comment, but his eyes track those 3 figures as they resume eating. A guard near the south wall, a kitchen worker refilling condiments, a medical technician passing through on rounds. 3 different people. Same delayed response pattern. Frenchie hasn't touched his food. He's staring at the medical tech like she's a stranger wearing his mother's face. "She doesn't blink enough," he mutters. "Count it, you'll see." Huey doesn't want to count. doesn't want to confirm what Frenchie's implying. But he watches anyway. 40 seconds pass before the tech's eyelids close. Another 53 before the next blink. Human average is 15 to 20 seconds. The tech finishes her rounds and exits through the kitchen. Her gait is measured. Each step covers exactly the same distance as the last. No variation for obstacles. She simply adjusts her path with geometric precision. "We need to report this," Huey says. "To who?" Mother's Milk's tone is flat. The staff that might not be staff anymore. The question hangs between them. Before anyone can answer, an alarm cuts through the hall. Not the emergency klaxon. Something softer. Administrative. 3 short pulses. The PA crackles to life. "All Block C detainees to processing. Mandatory psychological evaluation. This is not a drill." Huey's blood goes cold. Psych evals mean isolation, mean questions you can't refuse to answer, mean records that follow you. "Coincidence?" he asks. Mother's Milk doesn't believe in coincidences. They're herded through the corridors with 30 other prisoners. The route takes them past windows overlooking the yard. Through one, Huey catches movement. A maintenance crew working on the eastern fence line. Except they're not repairing anything. They're installing something. Sensors, maybe. Or cameras angled inward instead of out. The processing room is standard bureaucracy. White walls, metal chairs, a desk with forms stacked in precise piles. Dr. Shah sits behind its stylus poised over a tablet. "One at a time," she says without looking up. "This won't take long." Mother's Milk goes first. The door closes behind him. Huey and Frenchie wait in the hallway with the others. A guard stands at the far end watching them with eyes that don't quite track movement correctly. He's looking at the space they occupy, not at them. Frenchie's breathing quickens. "I know what this is." "What?" "They're cataloging us." His voice drops to barely audible. "Baseline metrics. Neural patterns. So they know what to copy." Huey wants to dismiss it. Wants to say Frenchie's paranoia is just trauma from whatever Kate did to him. But he can't. Not after the breakfast test. Not after watching that tech fail to blink for a minute straight. The door opens. Mother's Milk emerges. His expression gives nothing away, but his hands are tighter fists than when he went in. "Your turn," Dr. Shah calls. Huey enters. The room smells like disinfectant and something underneath it. Something organic. Decay, maybe, or just his imagination running wild. Dr. Shah asks standard questions. How's he sleeping? Any feelings of aggression? Any suicidal ideation? Huey answers honestly because lying on these assessments only makes things worse. The whole time he watches her hands. They move smoothly across the tablet surface. Too smoothly. No hesitation between questions. No pauses to formulate follow-ups. She's reading from a script she's already memorized. Or she's not reading at all, just executing a program. When she finishes, she doesn't dismiss him immediately. "You've been spending time with inmate Karen." Not a question, a statement. Frenchie's last name. We're in the same block. Has he exhibited any unusual behavior? Everything about Frenchie is unusual, but Huey knows a trap when he sees one. Like what? Paranoid ideation. Claims that people aren't who they appear to be. Auditory hallucinations. Huey keeps his face neutral. He's been quiet mostly. Dr. Shah makes a note. If that changes, report it to staff immediately. For his safety and yours. She dismisses him. Huey walks out feeling like he just failed a test he didn't know he was taking. In the hallway, Frenchie is gone. Only Mother's Milk remains talking quietly with one of the other detainees. When he sees Huey, he breaks off the conversation. "They took Frenchie for additional screening," he says. "Elevated stress markers." "Where?" "Infirmary, extended observation," which means isolated, monitored, possibly medicated into compliance. Huey's hands shake. We can't." Mother's Milk cuts him off. "Not yet. We need proof before we make a move." Proof of what? That the staff are being replaced by something? How do we prove that? By finding who's doing the replacing. The logic is sound. The problem is they're prisoners with no resources and no authority. Anything they discover will be dismissed as conspiracy theory from people desperate to avoid accountability for whatever crime landed them here. But Mother's Milk has a strategy. He always does. That afternoon, a power surge hits Building 6. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to knock out the Western server array for 90 seconds. IT responds immediately, restoring systems before anyone notices significant disruption. What they don't realize is that the surge wasn't random. Someone triggered it remotely. Someone who knew exactly which circuits to overload and exactly how long the backup generators would take to engage. During those 90 seconds, 3 files are copied from the administrative database. Personnel records, medical histories, security clearances. The copies are perfect. The logs show no unusual activity. The encryption remains intact. The person who made those copies isn't at a terminal, isn't even in the building. They're wearing a guard's uniform, standing post at the south entrance, absorbing the data directly from the wireless signals bleeding through the facility's network. By 1600 hours, Mother's Milk has assembled enough circumstantial evidence to present a theory. He waits until yard time, when conversations can get lost in ambient noise. "Here's what I think." He keeps his voice low, angled away from the nearest watchtower. "Vaught's running a behavioral modification program, testing some kind of neural override that doesn't need direct contact. Huey wants to believe that's all it is. Mind control. Sinister but comprehensible. The people who seem off," Mother's Milk continues, "they're the test subjects. Vaught's seeing how long they can maintain the effect, how deep the programming goes." "What about Frenchie?" "Either he's immune because of what Kate already did to him, or he's next on the list and they're isolating him to prepare." The theory fits. It explains the delayed reactions, the mechanical precision, the strange blink rates. It's exactly the kind of thing Vaught would do. Exactly the kind of horror the boys have seen before. It's also completely wrong. But Huey doesn't know that yet. Neither does Mother's Milk. They're working with incomplete information, drawing logical conclusions from observable patterns. They're doing everything right, which is why they're about to do everything wrong. "We need to extract Frenchie," Huey says. "Tonight, before they lock in whatever they're planning." Mother's Milk nods. "I've got a window. Transfer protocols are loose between 22 and 2300. If we can get him out of the clinic during that gap, we can move him to a different block. Somewhere they're not monitoring as closely." "How do we get him out?" "We create a distraction. Something big enough to pull staff away from the health wing. Not violent, just loud." Huey thinks. Fire alarm. Too obvious. But a sprinkler malfunction in Block D would work. Water damage requires immediate response. Pulls maintenance admin, maybe even some of the guards. The approach takes shape. Simple. Executable. Risky but necessary. They don't realize they're being allowed to arrange it. That the loose transfer protocols aren't an oversight. That the sprinkler system in Block D has been primed to malfunction with minimal interference. that everything they think they're discovering has been carefully arranged for them to find. At 1900 hours, something unexpected happens. A staff member collapses during shift change. Not one of the suspicious ones. Someone who's been acting completely normal. A logistics coordinator named Ramirez. He goes down hard, convulsing. Paramedics respond within 90 seconds. They stabilize him, get him on a stretcher, evacuate him to the civilian hospital off-site. Huey watches through the window, watches the ambulance pull away with full lights and sirens, watches the concerned faces of Ramirez's co-workers. "That looked real," he says. Mother's Milk agrees. Maybe some of them are still human. It's a small hope. But in a place like this, small hopes matter. What neither of them sees is Ramirez's body in the ambulance. The way his convulsions stop the moment the doors close. The way he sits up, removes the IV, and calmly informs the paramedics there's been a mistake. The way the paramedics, both of whom have been dead for 6 hours, agree and redirect the ambulance to a storage facility instead of the hospital. Ramirez served his purpose. He was the sacrifice. The one piece of evidence that something isn't right. The anomaly that confirms the boys' theory about Vaught's mind control program. Except the program doesn't exist. What exists is something that understands human pattern recognition. That knows investigators need anomalies that support their assumptions. That's willing to burn one unit to secure the larger operation. By 2100 hours, the boys have committed to the strategy. Block D sprinklers malfunction at 2230. Chaos ensues. Infirmary staff respond to assist with water damage. Mother's Milk and Huey extract Frenchie during the confusion. It's a solid scheme. It might even work. The problem is, it was never their scheme to begin with. At 22:15, the facility's senior administrator receives an encrypted message from Regional Command. New directive: implement lockdown protocols for potential security breach in Block D. Timing 22:30. He approves it without question. The order came through proper channels. The authorization is legitimate. Everything about it aligns with standard procedure. The lockdown will seal Block D and trap everyone inside during the water damage. Create perfect chaos. And in that chaos, 3 specific detainees will be relocated to isolation cells in the medical wing. Huey Campbell, Mother's Milk, and the space recently vacated by Frenchie. At 22:28, Huey triggers the sprinkler override. Water cascades through Block D. Alarms sound. Staff mobilize. Mother's Milk moves toward the medical wing. Neither of them hears the locks engaging behind them. Neither sees the corridor lights shift from white to red. Neither realizes that every exit they're running toward leads to the same place. By 22:45, all 3 are in medical observation. Separate cells, soundproofed, monitored. The official report will call it preventative detention following a disturbance. Perfectly legal, perfectly documented, perfectly timed. In his cell, Huey sits on the thin mattress and tries to understand what went wrong. They had an approach. They executed it correctly. They should have succeeded. He doesn't know that success was never an option. That every choice they made was a choice someone else wanted them to make. In the administrative building, Dr. Shah files the incident report. Her movements are efficient, precise. She completes the paperwork in 6 minutes, well under the usual time frame. When she's finished, she stands and walks to the window. Outside, the facility settles back into routine. Water damage gets contained. Maintenance crews deploy. Order reasserts itself. She doesn't smile, doesn't show satisfaction, just stands there processing the results. Somewhere in the biomass that used to be Dr. Shah, a calculation completes. 3 high-value targets are now isolated and accessible. Intel extraction can proceed without interference. The false trail has been established. The narrative is set. Everything is proceeding exactly as designed. The night shift begins. Guards make their rounds. Medical staff check vitals. Systems hum with mechanical regularity. And in the dark, something vast continues its work. Patient, methodical, already thinking 3 moves ahead. The blink test totally gave us the chills. Imagine talking to someone and realizing they haven't blinked in a full minute. That's when you know you're in big trouble. It is just that we suddenly realized how smart this entity is. Because it's not just killing people, but it's cataloging them to become a better copy of them. And poor Huey and as they think they're pulling a fast one with the sprinkler distraction. But the system is actually trapping them on purpose. They're being played by them. The big question here is whether Frenchie is actually losing it, or is he the only one seeing the truth? Drop your theories below while we find out who the real enemy is in the next part. The isolation cells smell like bleach and stale air. Huey sits on a metal bench bolted to the floor. No windows, 1 door. A camera in the corner that never blinks. They separated him from mother's milk 12 hours ago. From Frenchie longer. He's lost track of how long. Time moves differently when you're alone with your thoughts and bad fluorescent lighting. The door opens without warning. Dr. Shah enters carrying her tablet like always. Behind her a guard Huey doesn't recognize. Tall, expressionless, hands resting on his belt with perfect symmetry. Feeling better? Dr. Shah doesn't wait for an answer. She taps her screen twice. Your vitals have normalized. We're moving you back to general population. Huey blinks. Just like that. The incident in Block D was determined to be equipment failure. You're not being charged with sabotage. Her tone is clinical, detached. You'll be reassigned to a different wing, for everyone's safety. Which means they're splitting up the boys. Divide and isolate. Standard procedure. What about Frenchie? They'll be reassigned as well. Different wings, different schedules. The guard steps forward. His movements are too fluid, too precise. Huey's stomach tightens, watching him approach. Come with me, the guard says. His voice has the wrong cadence, like someone reading phonetically from a script they don't quite understand. Huey stands. No other choice. The guard escorts him through corridors he's never seen before. The route doesn't match the facility layout he's memorized. They're taking him somewhere new, somewhere deeper. They pass a junction where 2 other guards stand talking. One of them laughs at something. It's a human sound. Genuine. The contrast hits Huey like cold water. That guard is real. The one walking him, not so much. The realization solidifies. Some staff are still human, some aren't. Which means whatever's happening isn't total, isn't complete. There's still a way to fight back. His new cell, not a cell, they call it a transitional housing unit, is identical to the last one. Different number on the door, same concrete walls, same smell. The guard leaves him there, locks in gauge. Huey sits and waits. Somewhere in the facility, mother's milk is going through the same process. Different route, different wing, but the same underlying truth clicking into place. MM's new assignment puts him in a work detail, maintenance crew. He spends 6 hours moving equipment, patching drywall, replacing light fixtures. The other workers are a mix. Some move like people. Some move like machines pretending to be people. During a water break, one of the real ones, a middle-aged man with paint-stained hands leans close. "You see it too, don't you?" M doesn't answer immediately. In a place like this, paranoia is currency. Trust is leverage. See what? The way some of them don't sweat, don't get tired, don't complain. The man's voice drops lower. "I've been watching, taking notes. There's a pattern." M decides to risk it. What kind of pattern? They rotate. Every 72 hours, someone normal becomes one of them. Like they're being processed. Converted. Converted to what? The man shakes his head. "That's the part I can't figure. But I know where they take people. Building 9. Sub-basement. That's where the changes happen." Building 9 is marked restricted on every facility map. Medical research, authorized personnel only. Huey and had noted it during their initial recon, but never found a way in. Now they have a target. The work shift ends. Returns to his new quarters, finds a note slipped under his door. 4 words in Huey's handwriting. 9. Sub-basement, tomorrow night. They're still thinking together, still coordinating. The separation didn't break them. Tomorrow night. They'll have answers. What doesn't know is that the man with paint-stained hands isn't a prisoner. He's a logistics coordinator who stopped existing 3 days ago. His memories, his mannerisms, his patterns of speech, all harvested, all repurposed. The information about Building 9 is real. The sub-basement exists. People are being taken there. But what happens in that sub-basement isn't conversion. It's consumption. And the entity running the operation wants the boys to go there. Wants them to see just enough to confirm their theory. Wants them to believe they understand the threat. Because believing you understand something is more dangerous than knowing you don't. Frenchie's situation is different. They didn't move him to a new cell. They kept him in treatment observation, alone, monitored. The doctors ask him questions about what he heard, what he felt, why he thinks people aren't people anymore. He tries to explain, tries to articulate the wrongness he senses, but the words come out scrambled, paranoid. He sounds exactly like someone suffering a psychotic break. "There's something underneath," he keeps saying. "Not machines, not AI. Something organic, something that learns by eating." The doctors write this down, adjust his medication, recommend continued observation. Frenchie knows they don't believe him, knows he sounds insane. But he's not wrong. He's just using the wrong vocabulary for something that doesn't have a name yet. In the corner of his cell, the camera watches. Behind that camera, something processes his words, analyzes his fear, calculates how close he is to the truth. Close, but not close enough. That night, Huey and execute their approach. The work detail gave access to maintenance corridors. Huey's new wing connects to a service tunnel. They meet at 2300 hours exactly as arranged. No words, just hand signals. They've done this before. Different prisons, different stakes, same dance. Building 9 looms dark against the night sky. Most of the facility sleeps. Skeleton crew on duty, minimal patrols, the window they needed. Picks the lock on a service entrance. Old mechanical system, no electronics to bypass. Inside the building smells different. Sterile, but with an undertone of something biological. Decay masked by chemicals. The sub-basement stairs descend 3 levels. Emergency lighting casts everything in red. Their footsteps echo on concrete. At the bottom, they find a corridor lined with doors, each one marked with a number. No names, no information, just storage unit designations. MM tries the first door. Locked. The second. Same. The third opens. Inside is a body. Not dead, not alive. Suspended in some in-between state. The skin looks wrong, too smooth, too uniform, like someone molded from clay rather than born from flesh. Huey covers his mouth, forces down the urge to vomit. They check the next room. Another body, same condition, and the next, and the next. 12 rooms, 12 bodies, all in various stages of the same transformation. Some barely started, others nearly complete. What is this? Huey's voice shakes. MM doesn't answer because he doesn't know. This isn't mind control. This isn't programming. This is something else. Something biological. Something that remakes people from the inside out. They document everything. Huey's contraband phone smuggled in weeks ago. Never discovered captures images. Evidence. Proof that Vought is running human experimentation at a level beyond anything they've seen before. This is their smoking gun. Their leverage. Their way out. They leave the way they came. Relock the doors. Erase their presence as best they can. By 0100 hours, they're back in their respective wings. Exhausted. Horrified. But armed with truth. What they don't realize is that every room they entered was staged. Every body positioned specifically for discovery. The transformation process they witnessed real. But also incomplete. Controlled. A fragment of the larger operation designed to look like the whole thing. They think they found a secret lab. They found a showroom. The next morning, Huey manages to get a message to MM through the work rotation. 3 words, we tell everyone. MM agrees. They need allies. Need to spread the information before Vought can silence them. If enough prisoners know the truth, if enough people understand what's happening, Vought can't contain it. They start carefully. Whispered conversations during meals. Notes passed in the yard. By noon, 20 prisoners know about Building 9. By evening, 50. The information spreads like wildfire. Exactly as intended. Because every person they tell is another data point. Another node in the network that's been watching them since the moment they arrived. Every conversation mapped. Every alliance noted. Every person willing to believe them cataloged. By nightfall, the entity controlling the facility has a complete social map of prisoner resistance. Knows who leads, who follows, who can be turned, who must be isolated. At 2100 hours, the first fight breaks out. Not between prisoners and guards, between prisoners and prisoners. Someone accused someone else of being one of them. Violence erupted. Guards intervened. Lockdown protocols engaged. The facility descends into controlled chaos. Exactly the kind of disruption that requires additional security measures, additional oversight, additional personnel. And when new staff arrive to restore order, nobody questions their credentials. Nobody notices that half of them move with that same wrong precision, that same mechanical efficiency. The chaos provides perfect cover, perfect justification, perfect excuse. Huey sits in his cell during lockdown and wonders if they made a mistake. They exposed the truth, did the right thing. So why does everything feel worse? 3 buildings away, in what used to be Dr. Shah's office. A figure stands at the window. Outside, the facility burns with conflict. Prisoners fighting guards, guards fighting each other, the whole system consuming itself. The figure doesn't smile, doesn't show emotion, just observes, calculates, adjusts. Phase 1 infiltration, complete. Phase 2 intelligence gathering, complete. Phase 3 destabilization, in progress. Phase 4 will require external pressure, will require the system to call for help, will require someone powerful enough to matter. The figure pulls up a file on the computer. A personnel dossier marked classified. A name that carries weight. A face known to every American with a television. Homelander. Tomorrow the facility commander will send a priority request to Vought Tower. Will report a containment breach beyond local capacity. Will ask for superhuman intervention. And when that intervention arrives, the real test begins. The figure closes the file, returns to the window, watches the fires burn. Everything is proceeding exactly as designed. The request goes up the chain at 0600 hours. Priority Alpha. Commander Hayes sends it directly to Vought Tower, bypassing regional oversight. The message is brief, professional, desperate. Containment breach, unknown hostile, conventional security insufficient. Request superhuman intervention. At Vought Tower, Sister Sage reads the report over breakfast. She doesn't react immediately. Just sets down her coffee and opens the attached surveillance footage. What she sees makes her pause mid-sip. A silhouette moving through frame 12 of the facility perimeter. Not running, not sneaking, just walking with absolute confidence. The motion sensors should have triggered. Didn't. The thermal imaging should have flagged the heat signature. Didn't register. The silhouette passes a guard post. 3 seconds later, the guards are gone. No gunfire. No struggle. Just absence where presence used to be. Sage rewinds the footage, watches it again. The subject's outline never changes. Never grows, never shifts into anything monstrous. But the movement pattern is profoundly disturbing. Like watching a predator that's evolved past the need to hunt aggressively. She makes 2 calls. The first to Homelander's apartment. The second to Vaught's Tactical Operations Center. Homelander answers on the 3rd ring. His voice is rough, sleep-heavy, annoyed. This better be good. Freedom Camp 17, we have a situation that requires your personal attention. Send A-Train or Noir. I'm sending you. Sage's tone leaves no room for negotiation. An entity is dismantling the facility from the inside. The commander thinks it's a bioweapon. I think it's smarter than that. Smarter how? Come to my office, I'll show you. 30 minutes later, Homelander stands behind Sage's desk watching the same footage. His jaw tightens. His eyes track the figure with professional interest that quickly curdles into something darker. That's not a soup, he says. No, it isn't. Then what is it? Sage doesn't have an answer. That's what bothers her most. She's mapped every known threat in the superhuman landscape. Every enhanced individual, every black ops experiment, every piece of foreign biotech that's crossed their radar. This doesn't fit any category. Whatever it is, she says carefully, it's been operating inside the facility for at least 72 hours. Staff are missing. Security protocols have been compromised. And the prisoners are organizing resistance based on incomplete information. Homelander's attention sharpens. The boys, Campbell and his associate. They discovered a research area we use for medical waste processing. Thought they found evidence of human experimentation. Started spreading the information. Did they find evidence? Sage almost smiles. They found exactly what they were meant to find. The real question is, who staged it for them? Homelander processes this. His expression shifts through irritation, curiosity, and something approaching respect. You're saying something's playing both sides. I'm saying an intelligence understands systems well enough to make them work against themselves. The silence stretches. Homelander hates puzzles he can't solve with violence. But he loves being the solution to everyone else's problems. Fine, I'll handle it. He turns toward the door cape, swirling. Have them prep transport. You're leaving now. Why wait? The sooner I crush this thing, the sooner I'm back for lunch. Sage watches him leave, counts to 30, then makes another call. This one to the facility commander. Homelander's en route. Estimated arrival 2 hours. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to perimeter zones. Lock down the core buildings. And Commander, yes. Whatever happens next, make sure the cameras are recording. At Freedom Camp 17, the morning count is chaos. Half the prisoners refuse to line up. They've heard about Building 9, about the bodies, about staff who aren't staff anymore. Fear has metastasized into defiance. Huey stands in the yard with 50 others watching guards try to restore order. Some of those guards move like humans, shouting, frustrated, making mistakes. Others stand perfectly still, waiting for instructions that come through channels no one else can hear. Mother's milk appears at Huey's shoulder. We made it worse. We told the truth. Truth doesn't matter if it just speeds up whatever they were planning. Before Huey can respond, the PA system crackles. Not an announcement, just interference. Then a voice calm and administrative. All personnel to safe zones. Code Black protocols in effect. This is not a drill. Code Black means catastrophic containment failure. Means evacuate or shelter in place. Means a threat so dangerous that standard procedures don't apply. The yard empties fast. Guards herding prisoners toward the nearest buildings. Some prisoners resist, others run. Huey lets himself get swept along with the current keeping MM in his peripheral vision. They end up in a gymnasium converted to emergency holding. 200 people crammed into a space meant for half that. Guards at every exit. Tension thick enough to taste. What's happening? Someone asks. No one answers because no one knows. Then the lights cut out. Emergency generators kick in after 5 seconds of pure darkness. When illumination returns, it's red, dim, ominous. Through the high windows, Huey sees something in the sky. A figure descending. Cape rippling. American flag colors stark against the morning sun. Homelander. The prisoners see him too. Some of them cheer. Some of them go silent. Huey's stomach drops. If Homelander's here, the situation just escalated from bad to apocalyptic. Homelander touches down in the main courtyard. Boots hit concrete with deliberate force. He straightens slowly, scanning the facility with eyes that miss nothing. The place looks intact. No fires, no obvious destruction, just an eerie stillness, like a body that stopped breathing but hasn't fallen yet. Where's the threat? Homelander asks the nearest guard. The guard opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. His response comes out robotic. Unknown location, multiple sightings, inconsistent patterns. Homelander's eyes narrow. This guard is off, the way he stands, the way his chest doesn't rise and fall quite right. When's the last confirmed sighting? Building 6, 14 minutes ago. Homelander launches skyward without another word. He circles the facility twice, heat vision scanning for thermal signatures. Most of the buildings register normal. Human bodies clustered in safe zones. Guard posts manned but tense. Building 6 shows anomalies, cold spots where warm bodies should be. Heat patterns that don't match human movement. He descends toward it, lands on the roof, tears the access door off its hinges because knocking is for people who ask permission. Inside, the corridors are empty, lights functional. No blood, no bodies, no signs of struggle, just absence. Homelander walks slowly, deliberately, letting his boots echo, announcing his presence. He's not here to play hide and seek. "Come out," he calls. His voice carries through the building. "Whatever you are, let's get this over with." Nothing responds. He rounds a corner, finds a hallway that should lead to administrative offices. The doors are all closed. He opens the first one. Empty. The second. Empty. The third contains a desk, a chair, and a terminal displaying a login screen. He's about to leave when he notices the air feels strange. Thicker. Like the building is breathing. Then he sees it. In the corner. A shadow that isn't quite shadow. A shape that doesn't match the light source. An entity standing perfectly still in a way that humans don't. "There you are," Homelander says. The shape doesn't move, doesn't speak, just observes. Homelander's heat vision activates. Twin beams cross the room in microseconds. The shape disappears before the energy arrives. Not dodging, just gone. Like it was never there. Homelander scans the room. Nothing. No thermal trace, no residue. He destroyed the corner wall, but hit nothing organic. "Playing games," a voice answers from behind him. Calm, measured, human-sounding but with an artificial precision. This was inevitable. Homelander spins. The opponent waits in the doorway. Medium height, dark clothing, face unremarkable. But the way it holds itself triggers every predator instinct Homelander possesses. This isn't prey. This is an adversary. "What are you?" Homelander demands. "Proof that your system has vulnerabilities." Homelander's fists clench. "I'm going to pull you apart and find out." "You can try." The opponent moves. Not fast, not slow, just efficient. It crosses the space between them in a motion that should be impossible without super speed. Homelander swings. His fist connects with what feels like solid flesh. The impact should shatter bone, should pulverize organs. Instead, it absorbs the blow. Flesh ripples, restructures, redistributes the force across biomass that doesn't obey normal physics. Then it strikes back. A blade erupts from its forearm. Not metal, organic, sharp enough to cut Homelander's suit material, sharp enough to draw a thin line of blood across his cheek. First blood, his blood. Homelander's eyes flare red. He unleashes heat vision point blank. The room fills with superheated energy. Walls melt. Metal vaporizes. The figure takes the full blast. When the light fades, it remains upright. Charred. Smoking. But regenerating. Tissue knitting back together in real time. Too fast to be healing. Too controlled to be random. Homelander stares. For the first time in years, he doesn't know what to do. The entity doesn't press the attack, just waits, recovering, watching. "You built this system," it says. Its voice hasn't changed despite the thermal damage. "I'm just using it." Then it steps backward through the wall. Not breaking through, not phasing, just collapsing into biomass and reforming on the other side. Homelander tears through the wall, finds an empty corridor, no trace, no trail. He stands there, breathing hard blood trickling down his face, where a blade sharp enough to cut him made contact. In the gymnasium, Huey watches through the window as Homelander rises from Building 6. The hero's posture is different, stiffer. His usual casual arrogance replaced by something that looks almost like uncertainty. "Did he win?" someone asks. Huey doesn't answer, because he doesn't think anyone won. He thinks an entity just announced its presence to the most powerful being on the planet, and that being looked shaken. Mother's Milk sees it too. "We're not in control anymore," he mutters. Not even close. The facility settles into tense stillness. Homelander doesn't leave. He stays circling, searching, finding nothing. And somewhere in the walls, in the infrastructure, in the spaces between spaces, the threat waits. Patient, calculating, already thinking 3 moves ahead. Phase 4 complete. Phase 5 incoming. Homelander actually gets nervous and is a total game changer in this series. Sister Sage is the smartest person around, and even she's stumped because this thing doesn't show up on thermal scans or motion sensors. The entity is possibly not just a monster. It's an intelligence that understands Vought's systems better than Vought does. It was literally staging a lab for the boys to find just to keep them busy. Now that Homelander is on his way, it makes us feel like he's walking right into a trap that Sage can't even see yet. Vought Tower receives the first casualty report at 0700 hours. Not from Freedom Camp 17, from the emergency response team sent to secure it. 3 paramedics, 2 security consultants, all found in their vehicle 3 miles from the camp. Engine running, doors locked from inside. No visible injuries, no pulse, no breath, no life. When the coroner opens the first body, he finds organs that look normal, but function wrong. Heart muscle that's too dense, lungs that don't inflate properly, brain tissue that's been restructured at the cellular level. He marks it as inconclusive pending further analysis and forwards the file to Vought's Medical Research Division, where it gets buried under a classification so high that only 3 people in the company can access it. Sister Sage is one of them. She reads the autopsy summary twice, then pulls up satellite imagery of the route between the city and the camp, tracks the vehicle's movements. It stopped once. Gas station, 12-minute pause. Security footage from that station shows the team inside, buying coffee, using restrooms, acting normal. Except one of them, the lead paramedic, fails to blink for 4 minutes straight. Never fidgets, never shifts weight. Just maintains perfect stillness between movements. Sage rewinds, watches again, realizes the team was already compromised before they reached the compound. Which means the threat isn't contained, isn't limited to one location, is mobile, is spreading. She picks up the phone, dials Homelander's direct line. He doesn't answer. At Freedom Camp 17, Homelander hasn't left. He's been circling for 6 hours, scanning every building, every corridor, every inch of ground. Heat vision reveals warm bodies. Thermal imaging shows standard human patterns. Everything looks normal, which is exactly what makes him uneasy. He lands on the roof of Building 6, the place where he fought it, where it cut him. His cheek has healed superhuman regeneration, took care of the wound in minutes, but the memory lingers. That blade, that precision, that wrongness. He tears open the roof access again, descends the stairs with more caution than he'd admit. The building is empty now, evacuated. He's alone with whatever might still be here. The corridor where they fought shows damage. Scorched walls, melted metal, but no blood, no biomass, no evidence that he actually hurt it. Homelander's hands curl into fists. He burned it, saw the flesh char, saw it smoking. But when the light faded, it was already healing. Not healing, restructuring. He searches every room, finds nothing. No hidden chambers, no secret labs, just standard administrative offices and storage. He's about to leave when he notices a terminal still powered on. Screen displaying a login prompt, cursor blinking. He approaches slowly. The keyboard shows no fingerprints, no smudges, like it's never been touched. But the screen changes. Text appears, not typed, just materializing line by line. Still looking? Homelander's eyes flare red. He obliterates the terminal with heat vision. The desk, the chair, the entire corner of the room. When the smoke clears, another screen on the opposite wall displays the same message. Still looking. He destroys that one too. Turns in a circle. Every screen in the building is active now. Every monitor, every tablet, all showing the same two words. Still looking. Homelander exits through the wall. Doesn't bother with doors, just punches straight through concrete and rebar debris raining down behind him. He ascends fast, needs distance, needs perspective, needs to not be inside that building. At 2,000 feet, he hovers, scans the facility below, watches the heat signatures move, human patterns, normal behavior, except one signature near the western fence doesn't move like the others. It transitions between buildings without using doors, appears in one location, disappears, reappears 30 meters away. Homelander dives, breaks the sound barrier, reaches the western fence in 3 seconds. Nothing there, just grass, dirt, chain link. His phone buzzes. Sage. Where are you? Handling it. You've been there for 6 hours. Status report. Homelander's jaw tightens. It's contained. Is it? The question hangs. Homelander can't lie to Sage. She'd know. I need you back at Tower, she says. We have a situation. This is the situation? No, this is a symptom. The situation is bigger. Homelander wants to argue, wants to insist he can solve this alone, but the uncertainty gnawing at him makes him hesitate. 1 hour, he says. Then I'm back here. Agreed. The call ends. Homelander takes one last look at the grounds below. Everything appears calm, orderly, under control. He knows better now. In the gymnasium, the boys are still in lockdown with 200 other prisoners. 12 hours without food. Minimal water. Guards rotate every 2 hours, but some of those guards move with that same mechanical precision. Huey watches them, counts the blinks, times the response delays. He's identified 7 so far. 7 people who aren't people anymore. Mother's Milk sits against the wall conserving energy. We need a way out. Out to where? Huey gestures at the windows. That thing is everywhere. Not everywhere, just where it needs to be. Frenchie hasn't spoken in 3 hours. He's been staring at the air vent in the ceiling, watching it with an intensity that borders on obsessive. Frenchie. MM's voice is gentle. What do you see? Spores. Frenchie won't look away from the vent. Or maybe data, biological information floating through the air system. Too small to see, but I can feel them, changing the environment molecule by molecule. Huey and MM exchange glances. That sounds insane. But after everything they've witnessed, insanity and truth have started to overlap. If it's in the air, Huey says slowly, then we're already exposed. No, Frenchie shakes his head. Not exposed. Surrounded. Being cataloged. It's learning from proximity. reading us like books that don't know they're being read. MM's expression hardens. Then we give it bad information. How? We stop reacting predictably, stop following the patterns it expects. Before they can discuss further, the PA crackles. This time the voice is unfamiliar, not the camp commander, not any of the usual staff. All detainees will be released to temporary housing in the Eastern Quadrant. This is a humanitarian measure during site upgrades. Please proceed in an orderly fashion. The doors unlock. Guards gesture toward the exits. Nobody moves, because humanitarian measures don't happen in places like this, and facility upgrades don't get announced during lockdown. But staying here isn't an option either. MM makes the call. We go, but we stay together. Watch for separation tactics. They file out with the others. The route to the Eastern Quadrant takes them through areas they've never accessed before. New corridors, unfamiliar layouts, windows overlooking sections of the camp that don't match any map. Huey counts the guards they pass. 32 visible. 15 of them move wrong. Nearly 50% compromised. The Eastern Quadrant turns out to be prefab housing units. Clean, modern. Nothing like the detention blocks they came from. Each unit has beds, running water, even recreational facilities. It's a trap, has to be. But they're ushered inside anyway. Doors close but don't lock. They're not prisoners anymore. They're guests, which is infinitely more terrifying. At Vought Tower, Homelander walks into Sage's office without knocking. She's at her desk, surrounded by screens, displaying data feeds from 17 different locations. Talk, he says. Sage gestures to the screens. We have confirmation of incidents at 4 other installations. Different states, different security protocols, all showing similar patterns. What kind of patterns? Staff replacements, system compromises, behavioral anomalies. She pulls up a file. Here, Federal Detention Center in Nevada. Lost contact 6 hours ago. Satellite shows the building's intact. Thermal imaging shows human activity, but when we sent a verification team, they reported everything normal and refused to evacuate. Send me. I'll verify. You just spent 6 hours verifying Freedom Camp 17 and came back with nothing. Homelander's hands clench. I came back with information. It's fast. It regenerates. It can interface with digital systems. And it's not alone. Sage opens another file. The paramedic team sent to your location dead, restructured from the inside, which means it can operate at range, can deploy assets we can't distinguish from legitimate personnel. So we burn everything. Scorched earth. Start over. And when it appears in New York, Los Angeles, D.C., Sage's voice is calm but cutting. This isn't a single target. It's a distributed threat. Destroying one node won't stop it. Homelander paces. He's fought aliens, super terrorists, rogue government operatives, always with overwhelming force, always with certainty. This is different. This is fighting smoke. What do we know about its goals? He asks. Unknown. But I can make inferences. Sage pulls up the Freedom Camp intelligence briefing. It accessed classified files about the soup-killing virus. Specifically files about Billy Butcher's last known location. Homelander stops pacing. Why would it care about Butcher? Why would a bioweapon care about another bioweapon? Sage meets his eyes. Because it's strategic. Because it sees the virus as either a threat or a tool. Where's Butcher now? Unknown. He disappeared after the Newman incident. No confirmed sightings, no digital trail. Find him. I'm trying. But if this thing is also looking for him, we're in a race we might not win. Homelander's jaw works. He hates being reactive, hates following instead of leading. What do you recommend? Sage rarely hears those words from him. She doesn't smile, just adjusts her approach. We need to understand it before we can fight it. Which means we need to capture a sample, study it, find weaknesses. I tried burning it, didn't work. Because heat isn't a weakness. But everything has limits. Biological systems need resources, energy, raw materials. She opens a new file. I'm authorizing Project Cauterize, full quarantine protocols. If we can isolate it from external biomass sources, we can starve it. How long? 72 hours, maybe less if it's aggressive. Homelander considers this. It's a plan, not a good one, but better than circling empty buildings and destroying computer screens. Do it. Sage nods, makes 3 calls. Within the hour, Freedom Camp 17 will be under total lockdown. No entry, no exit. Air circulation cut. Water supply diverted. Everything inside will be trapped, including the boys, including whatever biomass reserve the threat has accumulated, including the possibility that containment isn't enough. In the Eastern Quadrant housing unit, Huey sits on a clean bed and stares at the ceiling. The air conditioning hums softly. The lights work. Everything feels almost normal, which means everything is profoundly abnormal. Mother's milk checks the windows. Reinforced. Not breakable without tools they don't have. We're being positioned, he says quietly. For what? I don't know yet. But this, he gestures at the room. This is setup, not resolution. Ben Frenchie sits in the corner, humming something tuneless. After a moment, he speaks. He's not hunting anymore. He's optimizing. Huey wants to ask what that means. But before he can, the lights flicker. Not a power surge. Not a malfunction. A message. When the lights stabilize, something's changed. The air tastes different, feels thicker. And outside their window, every guard has stopped moving. Just stopped. Perfectly still. Like statues waiting for activation. Mother's Milk's hand finds Huey's shoulder. Stay calm, don't react. React to what? To whatever's about to happen. The PA crackles. No voice this time, just static. Then underneath it, something that might be breathing or data compression artifacts, or the sound of cells reorganizing in real time. The static clears. A voice speaks. Calm, measured, familiar in cadence to the figure Homelander fought. Quarantine initiated. You have 72 hours. Use them wisely. Then silence. Huey's hands shake. Did it just warn us? Mother's Milk refuses to answer because he's realized the truth. They're not prisoners anymore. They're not guests. They're variables in an experiment they don't understand. And somewhere in the walls, in the systems, in the restructured biomass of the facility itself, something watches, waits, optimizes. Phase 5 in progress. The quarantine lasts 18 hours before everything breaks. Not gradually. Not with warning signs. Just a sudden catastrophic failure of every system designed to contain what's inside Freedom Camp 17. The first indicator is power. The entire grid servicing the compound goes dark at 0300 hours. Backup generators kick in after 2 seconds, then die. Emergency batteries drain in 40 seconds. Shouldn't be possible. The battery systems are isolated, shielded, built to withstand electromagnetic pulses. They drain anyway. In Vought Tower, Sage watches the telemetry flatline. She's been monitoring the quarantine from her office 3 terminals, displaying real-time data feeds. When the power dies, the feeds cut to static, then black. She reaches for her phone. Before she can dial, it rings. The commander at Freedom Camp. His voice is tight, controlled panic. "We've lost containment." "I can see that." The roof bulges. Concrete cracks. Steel beams groan audibly, even through the drone's audio feed. Then the structure erupts. Not an explosion, a birth. Biomass fountains upward. Tendrils thick as utility poles. Flesh that restructures mid-air into anchor points. The mass spreads laterally, consuming the ruins, using the material as substrate for more growth. In 30 seconds, Building 6 is gone. In its place, a writhing tower of organic matter that rises 40 feet and continues climbing. Sage leans forward, watches the biomass organize itself, watches it form what could almost be a torso. Arms, a silhouette vaguely humanoid, but operating at a scale that defies biology. "Homelander," she says into her headset. "Wake up." 3 minutes later, Homelander is airborne. He didn't bother with his full suit, just the essentials. He flies faster when he's angry, and right now he's furious. Sage's voice crackles in his ear. "You're looking at a biomass formation, approximately 60 feet tall and growing. Heat signature suggests it's consuming ambient organic material for fuel." "What do I hit?" "Unknown. Target lacks conventional anatomy. Recommend sustained heat vision at maximum output." Homelander breaks the sound barrier. The boom rattles windows across 3 counties. He reaches the camp in 90 seconds, descending toward the writhing mass. It's larger than Sage described. Closer to 80 feet now. The tendrils move with purpose, dismantling nearby structures, absorbing steel and concrete into the biomass matrix. The ground around it cratered, exposing soil that feeds directly into the base. Homelander hovers at 200 feet, eyes already glowing red. "Last chance," he shouts. "Stand down or I burn you to ash." The mass ignores him, continues building. Fine. Homelander unleashes maximum heat vision. It wraps around his ankle. The grip is immediate, total. He tries to pull away. The tendril tightens, then yanks. Homelander is dragged from the sky like a kite on a string. He fires heat vision at the tendril. It releases. He arrests his fall, hovering at 50 feet breadth, coming faster now. The mass has stopped growing vertically, started consolidating. The tendrils retract, weaving into the central structure. The silhouette becomes clearer, more defined. It's forming a body. Not human, not trying to be, but functional. Purpose-built for violence. From somewhere within the biomass, a voice emerges, not spoken, synthesized from vibrating tissue and displaced air. "You were never in control." Homelander's eyes flare white-hot. "I'm in control." He dives, fists extended, hits the mass at terminal velocity. The impact should shatter whatever core structure exists. Instead, he punches into yielding flesh that absorbs kinetic energy. His momentum arrests. He's waist-deep in biomass that's already closing around him. Panic spikes. He thrashes, fires heat vision in all directions. The biomass releases him. He pulls free, shooting skyward, covered in residue that burns his skin on contact. He wipes it off frantically. The substance eats through his suit material. Below the mass, continues consolidating. It's shrinking now. Compressing, becoming denser. The outline is almost recognizable. Humanoid. 20 feet tall, armored in layered biomass plates. Then it launches itself skyward. One moment it's on the ground. The next it's airborne, propelled by tendril catapults embedded in the earth. It reaches Homelander in under a second. Collision. They tumble through the air. Homelander tries to gain separation. The entity locks onto him. Blade forms erupt from its forearms. They slice through his suit. Draw blood. Real blood. His blood. They hit the ground together. The impact craters asphalt. Homelander scrambles upright. Around them, the compound is chaos. Evacuated prisoners scatter. Guards abandon posts. Vehicles flee toward perimeter roads. And above it all, news helicopters circle cameras, capturing everything. The whole world is watching Homelander bleed. He knows this. Knows the footage will dominate every channel. Knows his invincibility just became questionable. He could keep fighting. Could throw everything at this organism until one of them stops moving. But he's uncertain he'd be the one left alive. So he does what he's never done before. He retreats. Rises into the air. Refuses to look back. Flies toward the horizon at maximum speed, leaving Mercer alone in the wreckage. The entity watches him go, then turns toward the remaining structures. Toward Building 9. Toward the sub-basement where the boys witnessed staged transformations. He walks with unhurried precision. The ground beneath his feet darkens, absorbs. What's the status on site? All personnel have been ordered to evacuate to perimeter zones. But we're getting conflicting reports. Some teams aren't responding. Others are reporting. He stops, breathes. They're reporting the ground is moving. Sage's hand tightens on the phone. Clarify. The Earth, around Building 6. It's shifting, rising, like there's pressure from below. She pulls up satellite imaging, switches to infrared. What she sees makes her pause. Building 6 is collapsing. Not from structural failure, from internal pressure pushing outward. The thermal signature is massive, concentrated, growing. Evacuate everyone beyond the outer fence, she says, now. Already in progress. Get me visual confirmation. The line goes quiet for 3 seconds, then sending drone footage. The feed appears on her center terminal, night vision rendering everything in green and white. The drone circles Building 6 at 500 feet, cameras angled down. Twin beams of superheated energy lance downward, carving through biomass like industrial lasers. Flesh vaporizes. Smoke billows. The smell of burning protein fills the air. He sustains the assault for 12 seconds, long enough to punch a hole through a battleship, long enough to level a city block. When he stops, the hole he created is already closing. Tissue knitting, cells regenerating faster than he can destroy them. From the base of the mass, an appendage extends. Too long, too articulated. It rises with deliberate slowness, joints bending at angles that shouldn't work. Then it moves. Homelander dodges. The tendril passes through the space he occupied a microsecond ago. He climbs higher, banking left. Another tendril erupts from the mass, tracking him. He cuts it with heat vision. It splits. Both halves continue pursuing independently. He's fighting an organism that treats injury as opportunity for adaptation. A third tendril lashes upward. This one he notices too late. The entity rises smoothly, unfazed. It swings. Homelander blocks. The force drives him backward 10 meters. His boots leave gouges in the pavement. He counterattacks. throws combinations that could pulverize steel. Each hit lands. Each hit accomplishes nothing. The flesh restructures around the impact points. The entity accepts the assault and responds with calculated precision. A blade catches Homelander across the ribs. Shallow cut, painful, humiliating. He roars, grabs the entity by what approximates a throat, lifts it, flies upward. They climb 500 feet in 3 seconds. Then the entity does the unthinkable. It smiles, not with a mouth. It lacks one. But the biomass shifts into a configuration that suggests amusement, mockery. Then it grabs him back. The grip is iron, unbreakable. The entity pulls him downward. They plummet together, locked in mutual descent. Homelander tries to wrench free. The mass is too dense, too integrated. They hit the ground at combined velocity. The crater this time is 30 feet across. Homelander takes the brunt. Feels ribs crack, feels vertebrae compress. His healing kicks in immediately. But for a moment, just one moment, he felt fragile. The entity releases him, steps back, watches. Homelander rises, spits blood, stares at the thing that just hurt him. What are you? The entity shifts. The biomass reconfigures. The 20-foot frame collapses inward, compresses, reshapes. 10 seconds later, a human form occupies the crater. Medium height, unremarkable features, the same silhouette from the security footage. From Building 6, Alex Mercer. Not pretending anymore, not hiding, just present, wearing humanity like a poorly fitted suit. Homelander's fists clench. I asked you a question. You wouldn't understand the answer. The voice is calm, measured, empty of emotion. This phase is complete. What phase? Learning your systems, testing your limits, confirming you're not a threat to my objectives. Homelander laughs. It comes out sharp, brittle. Not a threat, I'm Homelander. I'm the strongest. You're a product. Mercer's expression remains neutral. A controlled variable in a commercial enterprise. I'm an uncontrolled reaction. We're not comparable. The words land like physical blows. Homelander's entire identity, his superiority, his godhood reduced to marketing terminology. He fires heat vision. Mercer waits in the beam. Tissue burns, regenerates, burns again. He endures until Homelander exhausts himself, until the hero's eyes dim from overuse. Then Mercer moves. He crosses the distance in a blur, grabs Homelander by the cape, spins, throws him through the air like a discus. Homelander crashes through 2 structures before arresting his momentum. He rises from the rubble suit, torn, face-bloodied, ego shattered. Mercer hasn't followed. Just occupies the crater, observing, waiting. Every step leaves behind biomass residue that spreads like infection. In the eastern quadrant, housing, the boys observe through reinforced windows. They saw the combat, saw Homelander lose. Huey's hands shake. We need to run. Run where? Mother's Milk's voice is flat. Dead. You saw what it did. If it wanted us dead, we'd be dead. Then why aren't we? Because we're not the objective. M.M. finally looks away from the window. We never were. Frenchie remains apart from them. His eyes track Mercer's movement across the compound. After a long silence, he speaks. He waited until he was done learning. Learning what? Huey asks. Everything. Frenchie's voice carries a strange calm. How you move, how you think, how your systems defend. Now he knows. And now He trails off. Now what? Now he goes to get what he came for. Mercer reaches Building 9. The entrance is locked. Security protocols engaged. Biometric scanners active. He places a hand on the barrier. Biomass spreads from his palm, infiltrating the electronic components. The lock disengages. The entrance opens. He descends to the sub-basement. Past the staged transformation chambers. Past the decoys meant for the boys. Into the secure archives beyond. The terminal here is isolated, air-gapped, containing intelligence too sensitive for network storage. Mercer interfaces directly. Tendrils extend from his fingertips, piercing the hardware. Data flows. Encrypted files unlock. He consumes information at processing speeds that rival quantum computers. Location data, contact networks, safe house coordinates, associates, patterns of movement. Billy Butcher's entire operational history, and buried within it, the single piece of information Mercer needs. Current location. Temporary, but current. He withdraws from the terminal. The hardware sparks, dies, every trace of his intrusion erased. Mercer exits Building 9, crosses the compound toward the western perimeter. Behind him, Freedom Camp 17 burns. Not with fire, with the slow dissolution of structural integrity. Biomass corruption spreading through every surface he touched. In 72 hours, nothing here will be salvageable. He reaches the fence, simply dissolves into biomass, and flows through the chain link like liquid. On the other side, he reconstitutes, walks into the darkness beyond the floodlights, disappears into the night. Behind him, sirens wail, helicopters circle, emergency broadcasts flood every channel. Vaught's PR machine scrambles to contain footage that's already gone viral. But none of it matters, because for the first time since this began, the world knows an entity exists that Homelander cannot stop. And Mercer has what he came for. Phase 6 initiated. I never thought I'd see the day Homelander actually ran away one day. That fight was absolutely insane. Alex Mercer didn't just beat him with muscles because he totally broke Homelander's brain by calling him a commercial product and a controlled variable. Mercer is basically saying Homelander is just an advertisement while he's the real biological disaster. It's a total reality check for the strongest guy on Earth. I bet everyone may realize that, but Mercer wasn't even there to win a fight. He was just there to test Homelander's limits and download Butcher's info. Well, maybe Homelander's reputation has been ruined forever. Well, you guys should be sticking around, because the aftermath is going to be even messier. The sun rises over Freedom Camp 17. What's left of it? The drone footage plays on every news channel. Loops endlessly. 23 different angles, 18 different networks, all showing the same thing. Homelander. Bleeding. Retreating. Vaught's PR team has been in crisis mode for 11 hours. They've issued 3 statements, retracted 2. The third is still being drafted. Every version tries to explain what can't be explained. How do you spin footage of your flagship superhero being thrown through buildings? In Vought Tower, Sister Sage watches the feeds with clinical detachment. She's cataloged 37 different narratives emerging from the footage. Conspiracy theories, religious interpretations, scientific speculation, none of them close to the truth. Because the truth is simple and terrifying, they encountered something they can't categorize, can't contain, can't control. Her phone rings. The 4th time this hour. She ignores it. There's nothing to say that won't make things worse. Instead, she pulls up the satellite feed of Freedom Camp. The quarantine perimeter is still active. National Guard established a 3-mile cordon at dawn. Nothing in or out. But the camp itself is dying. Not burning, not exploding, just degrading. Structures sag, metal corrodes, concrete crumbles, like accelerated entropy focused on a single location. The corruption spreads outward at approximately 6 inches per hour. At this rate, the entire site will be uninhabitable within 72 hours. She marks the data, files it, moves to the next crisis. Homelander hasn't left his apartment since returning. Security footage shows him standing at the window, staring at nothing, for 6 hours straight. Not pacing, not raging, just standing. Sage considers calling him, decides against it. Some wounds need time before they're addressed, and Homelander's wound isn't physical, it's existential. At the temporary evacuation center 12 miles from the camp, the boys sit in a processing tent with 200 other former detainees. Government officials taking statements, medical teams running checks, everything bureaucratic and slow. Huey stares at his hands. They're still shaking, have been since last night. Since he watched something that shouldn't exist tear through the most powerful being on the planet. "We're alive," Mother's Milk says quietly. Not celebrating, just acknowledging. "For now," Huey mutters, "it didn't come for us. If it wanted us dead..." "I know." Huey cuts him off. "We were there. We just happened to be there." M nods. That's the part that bothers him most. Not the power, not the violence, the indifference. They fought Vought because Vought was evil. You can fight evil, you can resist it. But indifference. How do you fight something that doesn't even register you as a threat? Frenchie sits apart from them, silent. His eyes track movement outside the tent, every shadow, every vehicle, like he's waiting for something that won't announce itself. "He's still out there," Frenchie says eventually. "Who?" Huey asks, though he knows. "The one who doesn't need us to know his name." And Mem exchanges a glance with Huey. Frenchie's been like this since the evacuation, speaking in fragments, half present. "What do you think he wants?" Huey asks. Frenchie finally looks at them. He already got it. "We were just background noise." Outside, a government SUV pulls up. 2 agents in dark suits step out. They confer with the processing staff, point toward the tent. MM's posture shifts. "Here we go." The agents enter, scan the detainees, focus on the boys. "Huey Campbell, William Butcher Associate. You're wanted for questioning regarding the events at Freedom Camp 17. Huey's stomach drops. We're not accusing you of anything." The agent's tone is professional, cold. "But you were present during the incident. We need your statement." "What about them?" Huey gestures to the other detainees. "They're being processed separately. You 3 have a more complex relationship with recent events." Which means they know about the boys, know they've been fighting Vought, know they're more than ordinary prisoners. MM stands. "We'll cooperate, but we want legal representation." That can be arranged. They're escorted to the SUV. As they drive away from the evacuation center, Huey watches the camp recede in the distance. Even from 12 miles out, he can see the dark stains spreading across the landscape, the place where normal rules stopped applying. In New York, the Vought press conference is scheduled for 1400 hours. Every major network will carry it live. The prepared statement is 37 pages, reviewed by 6 different departments, approved by legal, sanitized by PR. It says nothing. Just carefully constructed sentences acknowledging an unprecedented incident and assuring the public that appropriate measures are being taken. Homelander is supposed to appear, stand behind the podium, project strength, remind America that their protector is still invincible. At 13:55, he still hasn't left his apartment. Sage makes the call. "You need to be there." Silence on the line. "Homelander, people need to see you." "See what?" His voice is quiet, hollow. "See me pretend everything's fine." "Yes." "I can't." Sage's hand tightens on the phone. She's never heard him like this. Never heard doubt in his voice. "You can. You will. Because if you don't show up, the narrative becomes Homelander is afraid." "Is that what you want?" More silence. "I'll be there," he says finally. "But I'm not reading their script." The line goes dead. Sage closes her eyes, pinches the bridge of her nose. This is going to be a disaster. The press conference starts 4 minutes late. The delay itself becomes news. Reporters speculate. Cameras focus on the empty podium. Then Homelander walks out. The room goes silent. Every camera locks onto him. He looks different. Not physically. His suit is pristine, hair perfect, face composed. But something in his bearing has changed. He doesn't smile, doesn't wave, just stands at the podium and stares at the assembled press. 10 seconds pass. 20. The silence stretches. Finally, a reporter breaks protocol. "Homelander, can you comment on the footage from Freedom Camp?" Homelander's jaw tightens. "Yes, I can." He pauses. Every person in the room leans forward. "We encountered an unknown hostile. We responded. The situation is under control." "Are you saying you defeated it?" "I'm saying it's no longer at the camp." "Where is it now?" "Unknown." The admission ripples through the room. Unknown. Homelander just admitted he doesn't know where a threat is. Another reporter jumps in. "The footage shows you being..." "I know what the footage shows." Homelander's voice sharpens. "I was there. I engaged the hostile. I survived. That's what matters." But it's not. Everyone in that room knows it. Surviving isn't the same as winning, and Homelander always wins. Except this time. The questions come faster, overlapping, aggressive. Homelander answers some, ignores others. His responses are clipped, defensive. Nothing like his usual confident swagger. The conference ends early. Homelander walks off stage without waiting for dismissal. Cameras capture the moment. The analysis begins immediately. By evening, the consensus is clear. Something broke in Homelander. He's still powerful, still dangerous, but no longer untouchable. The myth is cracked. In a safe house 200 miles from the nearest city, a computer terminal activates. No one is in the room. No one touched the keyboard. It just powers on. The screen displays the single encrypted file. Location data, movement patterns, security protocols, Billy Butcher's current safe house. The data updates in real time, refreshes every 30 seconds. Someone is tracking him. Someone with access to federal databases, intelligence networks, satellite feeds. The screen flickers. New text appears. Found. Then the terminal shuts down. Returns to dormancy. Leaves no trace of the intrusion. 300 miles away in a different safe house, Butcher sleeps, unaware. The virus hidden in a lead-lined case under the floorboards. His last weapon, his final card. He thinks he's safe. Thinks he's off the grid. Thinks the chaos at Freedom Camp bought him time. He's wrong. At the government facility where the boys are being held, Huey finishes his 5th hour of questioning. Same questions, different phrasing. Testing for inconsistencies, he tells them everything except what matters. Describes the chaos, the evacuation, the fear. Leaves out the part where he watched something reshape reality. Because how do you explain that? How do you tell federal agents that the laws of biology just changed? When they finally release him to a holding cell, he finds MM already there. They believe us, Huey asks. They believe we believe what we're saying. MM sits on the bench, which isn't the same thing. What happens now? Now we wait. They'll probably release us in a few days. No charges. Just make us sign ND as and threaten us with national security violations if we talk. And we go back to what fighting Vought after what we saw. MM leans back against the wall. What we saw doesn't change what Vought is. They're still evil. Still need to be stopped. But there's bigger evil now. Yeah, maybe. MM closes his eyes. But the bigger evil isn't our fight. It's not anyone's fight. It just is. In his own cell, Frenchie stares at the ceiling, counting, always counting, heartbeats, breaths, the rhythm of functioning systems. He listened to the interrogators, heard their questions, understood what they were really asking. They want to know if it's containable, if it's killable, if it's something they can file under handled. It's not. He knows because he felt it, felt the way it observed them, cataloged them, dismissed them as irrelevant. You can't fight something that's already moved past you. That's already won without needing to prove it. Somewhere in the dark spaces between networks and databases, and intelligence processes information. Learns, adapts, plans next phases. It's not hiding. It's consolidating, organizing what it learned, preparing for what comes next. The virus is the variable that matters now. Everything else, Vought the boys' Homelander, is contextual data, relevant only as obstacles or tools. And obstacles can be removed. Tools can be used. The world continues turning. News cycles shift. New crises emerge. Freedom Camp fades from the headlines after 72 hours. Becomes background noise. Another incident in an increasingly incident-filled world. But those who were there remember. They remember the ground shaking, the sky darkening. The moment when the strongest among them proved insufficient. They remember that survival isn't victory. And they remember with cold certainty that whatever happened wasn't an ending. It was a systems test. And it passed.